Which of the following is not true for creating histograms? You don't have to write it like word for word, but just write the important details. Take notes. So if it were me for the question, I'd put histogram. For the answer, I'd put true and not true. Make a list. All right, so histograms. What kind of graphs do they look like? I'm looking for a different word. Bar graph, right? Histograms are their own kind of bar graph. The characteristic of them is that they touch and that they have intervals. So like I always learned that the intervals shouldn't overlap. But if you did your lesson day before yesterday when you should have, you saw that the graph, like the bars overlap on the same number, right? So you learned when to put, if it was 4 to 5, whether you put it in the 4 or the 5. So those things like that. So it might look like that. Either way, the intervals should always be even. You should have your scales labeled appropriately. So like which one's the x-axis, the test scores, or the frequency? Is x-axis horizontal or vertical? The horizontal axis. So on this one, it's test score. That's where your intervals will be. If my data is from like 60 to 99, should I start my histogram at 0? No, you don't need to. Should I end the histogram at like 300? No. No, so that's what we mean by appropriate label, like your axes labeled appropriately. It should include all your data, but it shouldn't be too large. What does frequency mean on the y-axis? What is frequency? Yes. For how many people got that test score? For this scenario, how many people got that test score? In other words, it's how often something occurs. That's what we mean by frequency. So like 3 people scored between 60 and 69. You know what their exact scores were? No, so that's kind of like the weakness of histograms, but you get a general idea of like what the most popular scores are between. And then both of them are labeled, but yeah, the bars should touch. Questions there? All right.
Okay.
So is this a statistical question? In miles, what is the farthest distance you have traveled? Yes, no, or I don't know. So how do you determine if something is statistical or not? What's the criteria for it being a statistical question? Yes. So certain words. Okay, can you be more specific? Statistical questions have what? Yes.
It's statistical because there's none of the first like so it's like in miles. So you're like day to day.
Good. So do you expect everyone to have the same answer? No. So that is why it is a statistical question. We call that like statistical questions have variability. Write that down if you didn't know. So like when we say results may vary, what does that mean? Results may be different. So it might be the same, maybe, and I don't know anyone's name in here. I'm so sorry. This is my 3rd day with you guys. But maybe like me and Pablo traveled the same distance over the summer, exactly the same. I don't know. I know we don't have a Pablo in here, but maybe me and Pablo traveled the same distance, but Just because we did doesn't mean that it's not a statistical question. Because this type of question, we expect there to be differences. What about if I ask the question, when was the US Constitution ratified? Would that be a statistical question? No. Because how many answers is there to that? One correct one, right? You might say, I don't know on that one, and I'll blame you, but for someone, so by the way, little tangent. On that assignment you guys turned in, the one of the survey, I do look at what you guys enter. I'm still gonna give you points, but a lot of you did it wrong. Instead of using the questions that are from the slides that you were supposed to use, you just kind of did your own thing. You just kind of asked all your own questions. So I had like, what's your favorite color? How many pets do you have? What's your favorite food? Only question 4 should have been like your unique question. The other 3 you should have gotten from the slides. All right, so here, let me show you. But if you watch the video, you would know that. So just so you know I'm not lying. See, there you go. These were the questions you were supposed to pick from. So you just pick whether you want to be set A, B, C, or D. And then those are your first 3 questions. I mean, you have to convert them to survey questions. And then the 4th question to be whatever you want. That way you know the difference between statistical and non-statistical. Either way, it's fine. I'll let it go. But just so you know, it's always in the video. All right. But yeah, someone had this question because this was one of the questions, and their classmates answered, I don't know. Like, just come up with a guess. Why would you put, I don't know. So that's why I put that in the Kahoot. All right, moving on. All right. So name the type of graph shown. Is it a box plot, dot plot, histogram, or two-way frequency table? All right, so everyone got it right. I'm proud of you. What if you had to create a dot plot from some data on a test? Do you think you guys could handle that? Okay, I hope so. I've given this as a test question before, and kids always find ways to like surprise me. All right. If I have 4 dots above the 3, what does that mean? So in the data, there's 4 number 3. Good. Make sure you label your scale appropriately. So don't start counting by 1s and then start counting by 5s. Seen that? If my data is from 0 to 7, don't count by 5s on your tick marks. All right, just so you know. But good job. Based on the box plots, which statement is correct? I'll zoom in best I can. Sorry. So the minimum value of class A is greater than the minimum of class B. The median values are different. The lower quartile of class A is less than the lower quartile of class B, or the upper quartile of class A is greater than the upper quartile of class B. This was Tuesday's lesson. Box plots are the ones that students maybe do the worst on just because they look weird, right? They're not like the pretty bar graph or the dot plot, right? But if you have a box and whisker plot, you should be able to name 5 values without doing any sort of calculations at all. So that's your 5 number summary. You guys remember that? Anyone who did the lesson on Tuesday? So what are one of the 5 values you can tell from looking at a box plot? Yeah. On the side, it gives you right there. you can go down and it tells you that's like the minimum and all the way to the side, it's the maximum. Good. So that's 2, we'll start there. So your find number summary has your minimum, which is your lowest number, and your maximum, which is your highest. So like for class A, what was the minimum? What was the maximum? Good. What else can you tell from looking at a box plot? Yeah? The lines usually where they meet are usually median. Good. The middle line of your box is your median. What does median mean? The middle of your data set. So you'll want your data to be in order, lowest to highest, and then just go left, right, until you get a middle number or middle 2 numbers. What do you do if there's 2 numbers in the middle? You add them together and divide by 2 if there's 2 numbers in the middle. All right, what's that called? Taking the average. When you add the 2 numbers and divide by 2, that's taking the average of the 2 numbers. All right, but median is this right here. So what do we know about the median of class A and class B? They're both 75, so they're the same. That's why it wasn't blue, I think. That one said that they were different, and they're not. What are the last 2 numbers you can tell from this? I'll take the long name or the short name. Okay. Okay, here they are. It's Q1 and Q3. Q1 would be your lower quartile. And Q3 would be your upper quartile. So that's like the edges of your box. So like right here, that's my Q1. This is my Q3. What is Q2? Do I have one? No. Your median, good. So median is Q2. The edges of your box are Q1 and Q3. It splits your data into quarters. That's why it says quartile. All right. So here's like first quarter, second, third, fourth. Questions on that? Your 5 needed values. So that's why the correct answer was yellow, which says that the lower quartile of class A is less than the lower quartile of class B, isn't it? All right. Questions, comments, concerns? All right, so I'm going to take a little picture. It's going to make a noise. Everyone always freaks out. Why, I don't know. And then we're going to keep going. The pictures I always post to Schoology just in case. When box plots are symmetric, which is the best measure of center? Mean, median, mode, range. When box plots are symmetric, which is the best measure of center? Well, at least you guys were kind of on the right track. At least you guys, I mean, maybe you all just guessed the right thing or a similar thing. But when we're talking about measures of center, we're talking about like a typical value in the data. So typical values in the data are usually your mean, or also known as your average. We'll use those interchangeably. But also a measure of center is literally like the center of your data, the median as well. So this would be a measure of center also. Mode, I guess, could be, I don't really consider it a measure of center, so that's like neither. Range would be what we call a measure of spread. So like how spread out your data is. So really you have 2 options, mean or median. When box plots are symmetric, here's like an example of one that is mostly symmetric. So like you see how the whiskers are pretty even in length, the median is toward the middle of the box. So for the most part, this would be an example of a symmetric box plot. So the best measure of center would be then the average. If it's not symmetric, is what we'll actually look at in the next problem. Questions, comments, concerns? All right. Oh. And we'll do the next one. No movement there. All right, when box plots are not symmetric, what is the best measure of center? Mean, median, mode, or range? When box plots are not symmetric, what is the best measure of center? Again, friendly reminder, take notes as you go. Oh, I guess I was recording the whole time. Oops. All right. So again, the only measures of center that are on this list are mean or median. So I'm glad most of us picked the right answer on this one. Here's an example of box plots that aren't symmetric. Right? The whiskers are uneven in length. The median bar is like toward one side of the box. So that's an example of when they're not symmetric. So when they look like that, the best measure of center that best represents the data then would be your median. Questions there? All right. Let's take a picture. And then the next one. All right. Which of the following is an example of a survey question? Which of the following is an example of a survey question? All right, voices. You remember that list of questions I showed you from the video? Let's look at them again. So these were the questions you were supposed to first convert to survey questions and then ask your classmates. And then the fourth question on your thing to do whatever you want to know. For example, like if we're looking at set C, about how long did it take students in this class to get to school this morning, would I go to the other person in my class and say word for word that? They would know how long it took students to get in class this morning. They would maybe guess, like you wouldn't ask that. Instead, you would say, how long did it take you to get to class? Right? So that's what we mean by converting it to a survey question. So if you were trying to find the most popular birth month, where's that one? So set A question 2, which month has the most birthdays from the class? I wouldn't go up to I wouldn't go up to Devin and be like, Gavin, sorry. I wouldn't go up to Gavin and be like, which month has the most birthdays in this class? One thing. Would he know? right? You would say, when is your birthday? And then you can figure it out. Okay. All right, so that's why on that one, the correct answer was yellow, I think it was. Make sense? So that's what you should have done. All right, which of the following is not part of the 5-number summary? Which of the following is not part of the 5-number summary? When do we use the 5-number summary? What's it for? Box plots, good. Or box and whisker plots, I prefer to call them. But 5-number summary, it does include the median, it does include the upper quartile. What's the other name for upper quartile? Q3. It does include the minimum. It does not include the mean. That's why that was the correct answer. This one's not part of the 5-number summary. What are the others that we need for the 5-number summary? That's not listed. Good, your Q1 or your lower quartile. All right, what type of data would be gathered from the following statistical question? What type of pet do you have? What type of data would be gathered from the following statistical question? So there's basically two main types of data. What word does categorical sound like? Category. And what word does numerical sound like? So if my answer to the question is mostly numbers, then it's numerical. If it's not, then it's categorical. So like, what type of pet do you have, class? I'm going to use a golden dog. Anything else? Anything outside the norm? Right?
I don't know.
Are any of these numbers? No. Categories, right? And why is it a statistical question? Hold on. I want the recording to get this, not whatever you're talking about. It will. Why is it a statistical question? Yes.
How many, what you have, and then thinking of the box part, you could put this person has a dog, but a dog, like one, two, three people have dogs, and then
Good. So in other words, there's variability. So I expect us all to have the same exact pet. I mean, a lot of us probably have dogs, but can we expect there to be other answers? So that is the short answer for why. All right, good. Let me take a picture. So given the data set in the picture, what are the 5 needed values for a box plot? One. All right, so what's the first thing that you should probably do before you look for the median? Yes? No, you don't need the average for your box plot. Sure. Maybe. What should you do maybe before you even find your minimum and maximum? Yes? Put the numbers in order, sort them from least to greatest. That's what you should do first, because are they in order? So what would be the correct order of the numbers? I know. I'm asking the question, what is the correct order of the numbers? Just read them out to me. Good. Are you sure?
70.5. Oh, wait.
Good. Remember, they're not in order, so you have to. Oh, yep, we did. Good catch.
71.
All right, so that was kind of chaotic. But just make sure that however many are in your list are however many you started with. So I started with 10 values. I should have 10 values in my list, which I do. Stop talking. This is like probably the hardest question so far. So just listen. When I ask a question, you can answer. But yeah, you can clearly now see your minimum. What else can you clearly see? The maximum. And then next, before I find my Q1 or Q3, I have to find my median of the whole thing, right? So just go left, right, left, right. Since I have 10 values, I should have two numbers in the middle. And then what do you do with those two numbers? Add them together into one. Good. So what's my median? 70.5 is your Q2. And it's between these two numbers, right? So never cross out your median when you're finding your Q1 or Q3. It'll go like this. So my Q1 is 68. My Q3 is what? 74. So those are my 5 needed values. 65, 68, 70.5, 74, and 90. Good. Questions, comments, concerns? All right, I'm still not done checking, so don't put them away yet, because then you don't get points. But you can use like the last 5 minutes to get your stuff turned in, take your screenshots if you need to.